Hello, everybody. My name is Camila Moreira. I'm from São Paulo, Brazil. I'm 27 years old and a student of Environment and Sustainability at Fundação Getúlio Vargas. Today, I have Bertrand Piccard. He is Swiss. He is a psychiatrist, and I'm so honored and thrilled to have you here. He has crossed the world in a balloon, moved only by solar and power. And I have today here with me to interview him, Abdalla.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Abdalla Ashraf. I am a researcher at the American University in Cairo, where I'm also undergoing a master's degree in sustainable development and in the process of launching Oikos Cairo. And I'm extremely excited about the amount of learning that we're going to have through this session.
All right. Would you like to share with us a little bit more about you, Mr. Piccard?
Hello, Camila, and hello, Abdalla. Hello to everyone. I'm very happy to participate. And who am I? Well, I'm a psychiatrist and I'm an explorer. And what I love is to improve the quality of life on Earth. And the role models I had were astronauts, adventurers, environmentalists, and of course, my father, who built the submarine to go in the deepest spot in the ocean, and my grandfather, who invented the pressurized cabin and made the first flight ever to the stratosphere. So I had the experience coming from them that scientific exploration has to serve the protection of the environment. And I wanted to be an explorer also because I became curious. I wanted to push the limits. And this is what brought me to be a pilot, to fly around the world nonstop in a balloon, and more recently to fly around the world in a solar-powered airplane. But I also had a mother, fortunately, who was very much inspiring about philosophy, psychology, spirituality. So I chose also to explore the inner world, what makes meaning, what brings the meaning to life. What do we do with our life? What's our goal on this planet? So I became a psychiatrist also to explore the inner world. And combining the two makes me really curious about everything we can do to be useful, to have an interesting life, to be a leader, of course, to be helpful and useful to others, and to address the big challenges that we have today in terms of protection of the environment, climate change, fighting poverty, inequalities, and trying to do something useful with our life.
That's great. In one of your TED Talks, I heard you saying that how important it is to address your speech to the public you wanted to achieve. And that was something very important and intelligent, actually, because if you want to get companies, as you said, like you must think about not only how it's good for the environment and how we need it, not only us as people who take care of nature, but also everybody, because it can be a big business. And with your solar impulse, how is that? Like, how is your failures? How are you getting into it? How are you speaking it up? How are you inspiring in all people over the world? How is that for you?
I learned that it's very important to speak the language of the people that we want to convince. And the people who are controlling the world today are people who are mainly interested in profit and job creation. That means in economy and finance and industry. And if you tell them only about the protection of the environment, it will not push them to change all their processes and all their production and all the meaning of their company. So I speak to them not so much about protection of the environment, but about the clean technologies, the renewable energies that would allow them at the same time to protect the environment and to help them to make more profit and create more jobs. And I think this is a very, very important message today for the world. We have to reconcile ecology and economy. We have to be inclusive. The goal is not to create a huge gap between the one who want to protect the environment and the one who are destroying it. The goal is to work all together. And this is why with my Solar Impulse Foundation, I have launched the challenge of selecting 1,000 solutions to protect the environment in a profitable way. So it can be technologies, it can be processes, procedures, it can be items, devices, products, materials, sources of energy, all that will help us to replace what is polluting by what is protecting the environment. This is the goal today of the Solar Impulse Foundation that I have set after the success of flying around the world with a solar-powered airplane.
That's perfect.
Now, is there a special story about the journey with the balloon that had to do with failure that you would like to share with us?
Yes, because I think it's very important if we speak of leadership to really emphasize the fact that we should not be afraid of failing, because failing is an opportunity to learn. And I will give as an example the attempt to fly around the world in the balloon, in the Breitling orbiter balloon. There were about 10 teams who wanted to reach this goal. It was like the ultimate graal of aviation at the end of the 1990s. And everybody was failing. I tried. For my first attempt, I made a press conference. I said, I'm going to succeed. Everyone else has failed. I will fly 3 weeks in the jet streams. And 6 hours after the launch, I was ditching in the Mediterranean Sea because of a technical problem. So of course, at first, it's painful. I was crying like a child. My eldest daughter did not even dare to go back to school because she was afraid that her schoolmates would make fun of her. Well, you know, a failure like that is either the end of the adventure because you think, okay, I'm destroyed and it's finished, or it's the beginning of a process to be better and to call your strategies into question. And this is exactly what I did. I changed a lot of things on the balloon, changed the strategy, added another person in the team, in the crew, and tried again. Meanwhile, the others have failed, and I tried again. It was not a success completely. It was the longest flight ever in the history of aviation, so it was a nice world record, like a consolation prize. But nevertheless, I couldn't go around the world. So I made a third balloon, still supported by the Breitling watch company. And I changed the type of fuel. I changed the crew completely. I changed the strategy completely, and finally succeeded. And all the others continuously failed for the same reason. I started to fail for different reasons until I succeeded. My competitors were big billionaires from America and from England and Australia. They always failed for the same reason. And this reminded me of an observation I had made with my children in the house where I lived in Lausanne. In this place, there was a covered terrace that was open to the garden, but the terrace had squares of glass everywhere, except the part that was open to the garden. And every day, there were dead bees on the floor. And I couldn't understand why the bees were trapped in that terrace. They could have escaped from the other side, but there was never a dead wasp. And I observed with my children that when the bee was trapped in the terrace, the bee flew to the first square of glass, which was a closed window, crashed on the glass, and tried desperately to go through the glass for hours or days until it died. The wasp never did that. The wasp was hitting every square of glass until it found the exit and could escape. And then I understood really the difference between the strategy of the wasp, which was exactly what we had done with the balloon, always trying other strategies, always using our failures to succeed. And the strategy of the B, which was actually the strategy of my competitors, who were always repeating the same mistakes and of course kept on failing one after the others.
That's very inspiring. That's great. Thank you for sharing this.
So of course, if we're speaking of leadership, we always have to try to be a wasp and not to be a bee.
I would take that for life, for sure. Good. Do you have any other questions, Abdalla?
Actually, yes. I mean, that's very kind of intellectually aspiring question. When you mentioned how painful it was to rise again after failure, there has to be certain personal criteria or characteristics that you have learned through your life to make you that resilient. Can you give us an example of some of those?
The only way never to fail is never to try. And this is really the worst thing, because you lose all the opportunities. And as a balloonist, I learned something really important. You are a prisoner of the wind that pushes you toward the unknown, like in life. In life, we are pushed by everything we cannot control. And in a balloon, you drop the ballast, you drop weight that allows you to climb, to change altitude, and you go through all the layers of wind that all have a different direction. So basically, you monitor the atmosphere, you understand what are the directions that are available with different winds, and then you come back to the altitude where you have the good direction. And in life, if we want to succeed, if we want to be a leader, it's exactly the same. We need to be able to drop the ballast of our certitudes, of our paradigms, our dogmas, our beliefs, our habits, our exclamation marks. We drop this as ballast in order to reach other influences, other visions of the world, other solutions, other answers, other strategies that will reorient our life in a better way. So it's always very, very, very important each time we fail to understand that we were not at the right altitude. We had a wrong ballast. So we have to throw away everything that prevents us to try again, everything that keeps us prisoner in old ways of thinking. And when we do that, we will have in our life, at every moment of our life, all the trajectories, all the directions that are open, and we just choose which behavior, which mindset we need in order to take the one that will lead us in the best direction.
So part of becoming extremely strong is actually letting go.
Letting go as ballast the certitudes and the beliefs that we have learned in the past that were maybe good for previously, but that are useless today. You know, it's strange when I speak to young people who are studying now, who are in the university or starting their professional life. But it's clear that what we learn is useful because we need to learn how to learn. But be careful, because usually what you learn is only what is scientifically proven, what is statistically reproducible and predictable. What is mysterious, what is unknown, what is not scientifically proven, that has doubts and question marks, this we don't learn. And it's a pity, because this is what will open us to other ways of thinking. So take what you learn, take your experience as a basis, but don't keep it as a prison. It means that there are a lot of things that are existing in life, in the world, that you have not learned. And it is not because you have not learned it that it does not exist. So in other words, if you focus only on what you have learned, you will miss everything else.
Yeah, that was great. That was really great. I don't have further questions because I think you answered everything that I was planning to ask. And I also believe that this last message also answered our next question, which would be the key message. And you just said everything, like don't stop learning, don't like open your mind, give you some opportunities to everything that in your like in the cone of vision, like everything. What kind of practice would you give us to this young generation who wants to be like responsible leaderships, who wants to practice this responsible leadership?
I would advise that each time you have to decide something, or each time you have to answer something, you should let a little quiet moment, and in your mind you think, what would I spontaneously answer? And what I spontaneously would answer or decide is the result of my conditionment. It's the result of the straight line I've been on in the past. It's not creative. It's just a computer in our mind where we reproduce what we have learned. There's no creativity, no innovation in that. So we let a little moment to think, okay, normally I would do like that. And then you ask to yourself, what else could I do? What would be my life, or what would be the situation if I would behave the opposite of what I have learned? The opposite. So I'm not saying the opposite is always better, but between saying yes and between saying no, you have a lot of possible reflections, a lot of other possible reactions. Between doing something and not doing it, what do you have as other choices? And in the beginning, you say it's yes or no, but it's not yes or no. It is what you have learned compared to what you will be able to learn if you answer something different. So you see, it's a little bit provocative, but I would say before deciding something, try to envisage the opposite of what you have always done. And it will give you much more tools to succeed.
That's a keyword have been listening to in a lot of your talks, the idea of reflection ending up with self-awareness. Are there any tools like meditation, journaling that you would personally recommend to enhance this conscious development to become a self-aware leader?
Self-hypnosis. I practice a lot self-hypnosis, which is a way to focus on the inner world, focus on our feelings, our inner experience, our thoughts, our emotions, to get in deeper relation with ourselves. And you can build a safe place, what we call a safe place in the jargon, which is an experience of comfort and security inside of you. And when you have this strength inside of you, then you can interact with the dangerous world outside of you much easier, because you know that you have the tools inside of yourself to reach your goals. In other words, you create the confidence inside of you in order to find all the tools, all the skills, all the resources, the potential, the competencies that you need. And if you have this confidence, you don't need to be so courageous. You know, courage is when you go ahead despite your fear. But if you have confidence in all the skills you have inside of you, you are not obliged to be frightened anymore, so you don't need to be courageous anymore. It comes in a much smoother way.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And in the past, I think 10 to 15 minutes, I've learned more about critical thinking and reflection than I've learned through my university years. So thank you so much for making the time for this. It has been absolutely enlightening and motivating at the same time. You're an inspiration for all of us. And thank you for everything that you have been doing with the renewable energy and renewables movement.
Abdalla and Camila, it was a real good moment for me, you know, to get in relation with young people who are preparing everything for their life. It's wonderful. I really wish you a great success in the way you do things, in the way you manage your life, in the way you lead yourself and others. And I wish the same exactly for all the people who are listening to us. So all the best, good luck and a lot of success, and be pioneers, be explorers, be curious. This is how you will open yourself to the world and much beyond in order to learn as much as we can. So good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making time for this. Thank you so much.